All right, welcome everybody. It is 11 a.m. Mountain Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. But as you see on the screen, this webinar will be recorded. So if you have to leave and want to watch the rest of it later, you can find the recording in the link bank, which I just put in the chat. I'll put it in the chat again. But this has all of the resources we will be covering today. So welcome to Exploring Local Waters with the We Are Water Project. My name is Claire Ratcliffe. I am an education associate at the Space Science Institute and PI for the We Are Water Project through the SSI's collaborative portion. And yeah, this project is really near and dear to my heart. It is coming to an end, and we have one more just amazing resource we wanted to share with you, as well as look back at the accomplishments that we've done during this project. Before I kind of dive into the content, I wanted to talk about this term here, place-based approach, and what that means, because this project is very, very local to a specific region of the United States. And we use this approach to really use the local community and environment as a platform for learning and engaging, as well as for designing and developing all of the materials. It's a way to make meaningful connections between the content and the lives of the learners. When you keep rooting yourself back in place, you are able to really make the materials you're making relevant to those in your community. Using a place-based approach also acknowledges the intergenerational knowledge stored within local communities, and it gives room for a critical examination of the social, political, and economic elements that shape a place and people's attitudes towards it. So as I said, my name is Claire. My pronouns are she, her. I work at the Space Science Institute, and I'm joined today by one of our partners on the project, Noah Newman. And I'll let Noah kind of introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah Newman from Colorado State University, and I'm with a citizen science project called CocoRoz, and I'll speak more about that in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks Noah for joining us today. And I also want to give a shout out to Beatriz Chavez. She's another Space Science Institute educational specialist. So she's going to be moderating the chat and dropping that link bank periodically. So all of the resources that we are covering, you can find neat and tidy in that link bank. So for today, we are going to do a quick icebreaker, talk about the We Are Water Project, talk a little bit about the water systems in the Four Corners region, which is what this project is based on. Noah is going to give a little overview about CocoRoz, and he has a really exciting map to show you that even if you're not anywhere near the Four Corners region, this is a free resource that you can use to learn about the water conditions within your community. Then I am going to be sharing some resources that you can download for free, or even take and modify to be more relevant to your community. And then we're going to talk about our big new resource, how to put together a water celebration event at your library. We'll end with a discussion and a Q&A, but feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time. All right, so quick icebreaker. This is more the Western science view of water. Just a little temperature check. What water quality indicator are you today? And you can just answer in the chat. So are you turbidity, which is the relative clarity of the water? Are you feeling a little unclear and scattered? Or are you feeling clear and light? The higher the turbidity, the more, unclear that water is. Or are you really feeling like low turbidity today? You're feeling like you can shine on through. Are you feeling like temperature? Are you kind of hot, cold, maybe just chilling? Maybe you're feeling hot with worry, about the hurricanes, speaking of water, that hit yesterday. Or are you pH, the acidity of the water? Are you feeling pretty sharp today, abrasive, or are you kind of relatively neutral? Or finally, the fourth option, are you feeling like dissolved oxygen, which is really important for water to support life? Or if you're feeling on the other end, are you kind of feeling inhospitable? So go ahead and answer in the chat. I think today I'm going to go with turbidity for myself, but the high turbidity, a little scattered. I had a long travel day yesterday and got back late. And then my son decided to wake up at 5 a.m. So I think, I'm not quite on the low turbidity, but that's just me for today. All right, we're getting some answers in the chat. Someone says temperature just chilling. All right, that's nice. Not too hot, not too cold. Kind of the Goldilocks, just chilling. Great. And how are others feeling today? And just a reminder, if you're using the chat, be sure to address your messages to everyone, not the default, just hosts and panelists. Make sure you change that drop-down menu so that your chats are going to be viewed by everybody. All right, here we go. pH, Marianne's feeling relatively neutral. All right. Ooh, turbidity, clear and light. Awesome. On the opposite side of me here, you're feeling a little more less scattered today, Rachel. That's great. Yes. Thanks, Noah. Low turbidity. Now that the hurricane has passed, able to focus better. Yeah, it's a rough night for folks, obviously in Florida or with family members or friends in Florida. Great. Well, thank you guys for doing that little temperature check. This is just kind of a fun way to bring in some science concepts around water quality and use it as a way to sort of check in with your audience. And here's a different kind of icebreaker. I would love to hear from you all. So moving away from sort of like the Western science ways of viewing water, let's check in a little more with just personally, what waters do you come from? And what water resonates with you most now? So for example, I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. So that Great Salt Lake is the waters where I come from. And, that will always hold a special place in my heart. It's what makes, the lake effect makes the snow so incredible for skiing. And then also, of course, we rely heavily on that snow melt for our drinking water and everything in Salt Lake City. But the waters that resonate with me most right now, I would say after working on this project, that San Juan watershed down in the Four Corners region, it's just such a beautiful contrast of the red rock canyon walls and that those rivers running through the San Juan River and the Animas. It is, that is the watershed that provides the drinking water, the recreational water, the agricultural water, everything for that region. So I think those are the waters that resonate the most with me now. But if you would like, you can think that to yourself, where do you come from? Is that still the waters that resonate with you most? Or do you live somewhere new now? But feel free to answer in the chat whatever you would like to share about where you're coming from and what resonates with you. I'll give just a minute or two for folks to answer in the chat. And Noah, feel free to share as well. Oh, great. No, you did. All right. Home to the Platte River watershed and the high mountain desert in the entire Four Corners regions resonates with me the most. Yeah, Noah's been on this project with me since 2020, and I think we've really, really been impressed and fell in love with the Four Corners region.
And in my college days, I spent many a Thanksgiving and spring break week backpacking in the Canyonlands and other national parks in southeastern Utah. So I love it there.
Yeah, likewise. I went to college at the University of Utah, so would spend my breaks down in Moab. I've rafted the San Juan River when I was younger. It's just such a powerful and special place. All right, we've got folks also from the South Platte River. And the Continental Divide resonates with Rachel. Marianne is sharing from the Gulf Coast of Texas. So Gulf waters with the salt and the waves resonate most with Marianne.
I love the Continental Divide also. I love the kind of the just the idea of the topography, and you can throw water on either side and end up in different oceans.
Absolutely. I've spent a lot of time in Yellowstone National Park, and driving through that park, I think you cross over the Continental Divide multiple times, and it's pretty wild to think about where those waters are flowing into different oceans. All right. From Colorado, Elaine says, but now live in northern Arizona. Colorado River, incredibly important to both of those states. And Jay is sharing that they come from the Salish Sea. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And lived in this area most of their life. The Columbia River also resonates with me. Fantastic. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. It's, I do understand a lot of this audience isn't from the Four Corners region, but we hope that the strategies, the resources that we're sharing are useful for you to kind of adapt and really think about your place, and not only where you come from but where you are now, in your library community, and how you can bring water activities, events, learning experiences into your communities in a way that is place-based. All right, so we'll move on. Thank you all for sharing. So yes, the We Are Water Project, if you are unfamiliar, this is a project funded by the National Science Foundation. And the big idea is all about sharing stories and inspiring conversations about what water means to communities across the Four Corners region of the Southwestern US. So this has been a big project. It's a huge collaboration between scientists, Indigenous science educators, learning researchers, informal educators, and library staff. So this is just a list of some of our partners up here. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Ceres Education and Outreach at CU Boulder. They've kind of been our parent guider throughout this project, but we could not have done it without all of these other partners, from the state libraries of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, as well as Western Water Assessment, keeping our science information accurate, the Indigenous Education Institute, giving us advice along the way to be culturally responsive, culturally competent, because the Four Corners region is an area with multiple different cultures. And I also want to give thanks to the Southern Ute Indian Tribe Cultural Preservation Department. They were able to translate the materials into Ute language. The Navajo Nation educators and elders translated the materials into Navajo. And we also were able to collaborate with Kyle Swimmer from the Laguna Pueblo to develop a culturally relevant take and make activity. And then, of course, all of our library partners, if you're on the call,
Cut in.
I can't think. Oh.
You've got a black box again. I'm sorry, just to
Oh.
do it just so we can see on the rest of the screen. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm not seeing what it is.
I think
Let me
it's
go to
just
the next.
like a notification on the lower right side. It popped up. Yeah. Oh,
Is it still there?
It is.
Oh, okay. Let me try to reshare that. Sorry, folks. We've been having some technical difficulties. Thanks, Noah. We want to make sure people can see who I'm thanking. I was just going to say, we've been traveling around to different libraries in the Four Corners region, and there was a list there of who that was, and we could not have done this without them. So, all right, let me get this started again. I wonder if, okay. I know there's going to be a black box there. Just give me one moment to make these things go away. All right, hide floating, and that box will go away in just a moment, these notifications.
And the same one on the lower right is still there. And that popped up as something kind of more to the right, but yeah, It was, I think, just whether a chat or a react that occurred that started it.
Oh, my, there was a react. What about
Yeah,
now? So sorry, folks. Thank you for
no
your
problem.
patience.
Yeah. Uh, it's still there, but I don't know if you can open up your reacts and
I have gotten rid of everything, so I don't know
yeah.
what it could be. Um,
The other thing just to make sure is when you're sharing, if you're just sharing the presentation versus your screen, might like if you can choose for it to just share
yeah, I
the
was just sharing the presentation, so maybe if I share just the screen.
screen. Yeah, maybe that'll
Oh, thanks,
no
Jay.
problem.
I appreciated
Yeah.
your reaction so much. Let me try just the screen and see uh, what happens. Hmm, hide, hide all the things.
All the things except for that thing is still showing. And but yeah, let's
Huh.
swap presenter mode and see if that, gosh, it is still there.
It's still there. I don't even see anything on my screen. Um,
Right. I don't know either.
I could know what if I send you the slides, do you mind
Sure,
sharing on your end?
by all means, that can,
Okay. Sorry, folks.
yeah, we'll do this quick.
Yeah, really quick. You guys are amazing. I'm really sorry. I know you're so busy. Um, right. Or maybe no, when I send you that, maybe if you want to share your Coco Raws.
Yeah, I can do that right now while you're doing that for sure. So I'll share my screen and just talk briefly about Kokoraz, the community collaborative rain, hail, and snow network. And what it is, it's a community science project where people put rain gauges in their backyards and report how much precipitation they get. And we started about 25 years ago, and we're approaching 30,000 volunteers in the United States. The problem that we're solving is that it can rain across the street and not on you. Or it might appear on radar and satellite to meteorologists that it's raining, but those raindrops aren't actually hitting the ground. And so we have people on the ground who are verifying these things. When I look at this map today, obviously Florida is one thing, and I'll show you in a second, but this is actually unusual to see most of the country with all these white dots. These are zeros. Usually there's more activity going on for the rest of the country. But if you go to kokoraz.org, and I'll put the website in the chat, this will land you on the home page. And if you click on that map, it'll open up our interactive map. And if you zoom in on Florida from yesterday, just incredible numbers start popping up with 12 inches, 10.79. Look at just the amazing swath from the hurricane last night. So this is open to anyone. You don't have to be logged in. You don't have to be a member. Go to kokoraz.org, click on the map, and you can see where it rained and where it did not rain. And what I'll also say is that wherever you live, we're needing more volunteers. And so this is something that we work with libraries to do outreach and get your patrons to sign up and be volunteers for us. So we'll talk more about how to contact me later on, and uh, that I'm going to now open up Claire's email and get that going. So I'll stop sharing for a second. And it is opening up. Still loading it, but it's coming.
Yeah, and while you're loading that, it's kind of crazy looking at that map in Florida, getting 12 inches of rain in a day. That's about as much precipitation as the Four Corners region gets annually. So it's really just hard sometimes, I think, to comprehend. I've spent most of my life out in the Rocky Mountain West. And so it's hard to even hold those numbers in my head. As much rain as we get out here in a year, they got in a day is, you can understand why there's just catastrophic flooding, and yeah, it's just so much water.
Are you seeing things
Yep,
properly? This
that
is,
looks
I think,
great.
where we left off, but we probably have to move on to the
Yeah, we
next.
can move on. Thanks, Noah. So I wanted to talk about the 4 exhibit pieces that we put together. So if you go to the next slide, as you see in these images, we really wanted to capture the colors of the region, the landscapes, they really iconic and, very spiritually important landscapes, and how they capture the water and shape, it's not just the rainfall and the snow melt, it's the way the land is formed is what continues to shape the land. But this piece here, this is called Water in Our Communities. It's our story wall. We wanted this to be really multi-generational and interactive. So we included a community mosaic where folks could color different tiles and add it to the wall. There are prompts where you can write what water means to you, your favorite water memory, something you're concerned about. And you can write that down, add it to the exhibit, or draw it as well to make it, multiple means of engagement. We have a video wall where we collected actually, we hired community members in each of the library's communities to interview folks that they knew and had personal relationships. And then they recorded those interviews and put them, we were able to add them to this video wall. So folks could listen to the spoken words of the stories folks shared about water. If you go to the next slide, we have our Water in the Landscape. So this is an augmented reality sandbox where folks can get their hands really in there, manipulate the sand to be different canyons or mountains or basins. And then when you hold your hand underneath the projector, it sort of rains colored light down onto the projected image on the sand, and you watch where water would form, where little creeks or rivers might form due to how you created that landscape. So it's really tying in, what is a watershed, and how the land itself is important in where our water goes. The next one is water use, water rights, water access. So this is, sharing information about how water in this region has not and still is not always equitably distributed. And so it kind of puts the participant in the mindset of, I need to make some hard decisions. So you can, it's a Plinko game where the little balls coming down, represent the rain. And on the left side, there are 3 buttons. You can either make it a regular rainy year, a drought year, or an extreme drought year. And it'll limit the amount of balls that rain down, and they fall into buckets. And you have to decide, if it's an extreme drought year and you don't have as much rain, where is that water going to go? Are you going to close the bucket for agriculture or recreation or commercial? You're kind of making these hard decisions. And then, we really wanted it to inspire conversations. Why did you make this decision? And, just really, really have to think about when water is scarce, it's still so critical. How do we share the water that we have? This is our Connect 4, all about water and life. So this is aimed more for the little guys. And it is talking about the plants and animals in the Four Corners region and the adaptations that they have to survive and thrive with little amounts of water. So there's 4 different tokens representing plants, animals, land forms, and weather phenomenon of the Four Corners region. And the kids can work together either to get all 4 of each different coin in a row so that it's representing, a balanced ecology. Or it could be more the traditional Connect 4 way where you're playing against each other. And I'm an animal and you're a plant, and I want to get 4 in a row. So there's multiple ways folks can use this, but there are little trivia cards that correspond to each piece. So folks can learn more about that animal or that plant or that weather phenomenon that they're seeing on the token. And this is on one side, it has the names of each item in English and Spanish, and on the other side, it has the names in Ute and Navajo. So those are the 4 pieces. And I want to say the tour is ending. As I said, we're at the end of this project. This display will be at Mesa County Libraries, the main branch in Grand Junction, through the end of this month. After that, it's going to its sort of forever home, the Powerhouse Science Center in Durango. So if you're ever in the area, even a year from now, this is going to be the home of the exhibit if you want to check it out. The only piece that will not be at this science center is the big story wall, that first one I talked about. It's a little too big for their space, so that will be at the Durango Visitor Center. But that is kind of where we are retiring the exhibit. So check it out if you're ever in beautiful Durango, Colorado. All right, so we've been talking a lot. I want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the Four Corners region. So go ahead and put in the chat just maybe one word that you might use to describe the Four Corners region. All right, Noah, you took my word. I was going to also say beautiful. Tara said dry, rural. Yes, absolutely, Dana. It's not quite the bustling metropolis of the Denver metro area where I am. I'll add a new word from Noah, since he took mine. I'll say unique. Every place is special. I in my master's degree program, we focused a lot on place-based education. And I remember one of my favorite professors always said, every place is special or no place is special. And it always kind of got me thinking, but every single place, whether you're in the countryside, whether you're in an urban area, has these special and unique qualities. They're not always easy. There's challenging qualities too of every single place, but every place has something tying the culture to it. So thanks for engaging in that. Important. Yes, absolutely. So Noah, if you could go to the next slide. Just want to dig in a little bit more about the Four Corners region. So that is where the borders of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona come together. It is part of the Colorado Plateau, which is a giant uplift of land. So a lot of the areas there are pretty high altitude, and that affects the watershed and how the water moves across the land. A lot of this region used to be an ocean. Millions of years ago, you can actually find fossils of sharks. So at a place that is so dry and arid today, once actually was completely covered by a saltwater ocean. And you can really see here with the average annual precipitation, it gets, maybe less than 10 inches of rain per year. When you compare that to some of the spots in Florida that got 13 or more inches in a day, it just really kind of gives you an image in your mind's eye of what the landscape is based on how much water or little water an area gets.
And as I go to the next slide, Claire, I'll just add that volunteers from CoCoRaHS, their data go into this map. Actually, it takes years and years of data, but we've got longtime volunteers whose data have been incorporated into maps that you see like this. So being part of this project that I that I love so much and I'm talking about today is something that you can become a bigger part than just yourself.
Noah. And then here's a more zoomed in area of the Four Corners region. All of the black dots on this map are libraries. So you can definitely see this is a rural area. Some of these libraries serve huge areas of land and communities. So you might just be one tiny library, providing so many services to all kinds of folks living in this region. So I just like to point that out. And again, I'm always like so impressed by the libraries we worked with on this project, all of the work they do, all of their everyday tasks, and then they still brought this in and held really meaningful conversations around water. But it's kind of, definitely a rural area, which brings its own unique challenges and opportunities for projects like this. And on the next slide, here's the watershed. So the Four Corners region is all part of the San Juan watershed. So a watershed is an area of land that channels water from rainwater. In this area, it's mostly snowmelt into creeks and rivers. And this one is really made up by the San Juan River, which Noah's tracing on the left side there. And then it connects up with the Animas River, which is up starting in Colorado. And kind of flowing down. And so these two rivers, which then flow into Lake Powell, this is the water. This is what brings drinking water, recreational water, all of that stuff, like I said before. And so, these communities rely very heavily on all of these things. And so we wanted to bring elements of this watershed into the exhibit pieces, as well as the learning resources that we'll talk about later, but just wanted to give a little visual of the water we were focusing on. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to Noah. Actually, I think you already went through this, but if there's anything you want to add, Noah, before we continue, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think if you can see my screen here, I'm holding the rain gauge that our volunteers use. So it does take it's a manual measurement. It's not just one of those automated type of weather stations that you mount to your roof. So it makes it even more interactive. But because of this particular rain gauge, that's what makes the data acceptable to, and used by the National Weather Service and so important. So yeah, that's I think all I had to add about that. And
great.
Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, and I want to add to all of the libraries participating in the project received a rain gauge and training on how to use it, and are actively, adding to that map that Noah showed a little bit earlier. So if you're looking for activities around water to do in your library, you can always go to our STEM Activity Clearinghouse. If you have not heard about what this is, it's an online repository of over 500 hands-on STEM activities. And it's not just all water related. There's space science stuff, there's earth science, citizen science, and these activities are appropriate for ages pre-K all the way through adult programming. So this is just a great resource to share for any of your STEM projects. But on the next slide, one of our featured collections is our We Are Water collection. This has about 28 activities relating to the water cycle. There's a suite of activities about the uranium mining in the Four Corners region and how that's affected the Navajo population and other populations. But if you're just looking for some water activities, definitely check out that collection. And on the next slide, I'm just highlighting my favorites from that activity that we've tested in libraries. Who Dirtied the Water is a story time activity where you have a script that you read and you have different elements that kids put into a little bucket of water. And you can modify that story to be about your hometown or the town where your library is to make it really locally relevant. Low-tech water filter is an engineering extension to that activity. So after you pollute the water and make it all dirty, you have the kids create a filter that they can then clean that water that they just dirtied. Paper mountains, very easy. You just need a sheet of paper. And this is a demonstration of creating a watershed. You just crumple up the paper, draw with, I like Crayola markers, the washable ones, draw with washable markers along the creases that you did after you crumpled the paper, spray some water on it, and you'll watch as the ink from those markers kind of turn into rivers and puddle in little areas. So you're creating a watershed just with a piece of paper. Build-A-Bug is all about aquatic bugs and the adaptations they have, and also their role in water quality. And then the last one I want to highlight is the Waffle Garden. This is a take and make kit where kids are learning about indigenous ways of gardening in the Four Corners region in such an arid environment. This is a centuries old technique for dry farming that was co-developed with Kyle from the Laguna Pueblo. All right, and I don't want to take too much time because Noah has a lot of fun stuff. The main link I want you to know and bookmark is wearewater.colorado.edu/learn. So here you can find additional take and make kits in English, Spanish, and Navajo, more activities and lessons about water. There is a Kahoot, quiz that you can quiz yourself on water. There's videos. There's a virtual book club, which has book suggestions as well as discussion prompts, a stop motion animation workshop activity guide you can download, and all kinds of other stuff in here, a water patch activity, conversation guides about how do you talk about something as maybe contentious as water in a respectful way that is productive and not just causing conflict. So all kinds of incredible resources there. And since we only have 25 minutes left, I'm just going to let Noah slowly go through these slides without me talking. These are the take and make kits. You can go to the next slide. And all of these are available to download for free. These are some coloring and activity books that you can download in multiple languages. Yeah, and you can keep going. I was going to talk more, but since we've lost some time, amazing resources here. Definitely check them out. If you have questions, here's the book club list. There's book clubs list for adults. There's a list for teens if you want to do a book club with your younger learners. Great stuff there. So check that out. But without further ado, I will pass it over to Noah to talk about our most recent resource that we developed, which is an instructional guide for how to host your own water celebration day. So I'll turn it over to you, Noah.
Right. No, thanks, Claire. No rush. It's all good. I think we're a pretty lax group here today, I'm sure. But we appreciate you guys being here. As I've already introduced, I'm Noah Newman. I'm with Colorado State University. I work at the Colorado Climate Center, where my boss is the state climatologist for Colorado. And one of the things that our office does is manages this community science project that started in Colorado called CoCoRaHS that I just talked about. And it just, because it started with us, it was supposed to be a local project, but it expanded nationwide. And we've been trying to tread water ever since with keeping up with the growing number of volunteers joining. So it's a lot of fun. But we've been part of this project, We Are Water, which Claire already discussed, was really a huge conglomerate of a lot of partners. And again, a National Science Foundation funding. We already, of course, discussed the kind of the showcase of the project, the traveling library exhibit. But with this exhibit, one of the things that we worked with libraries for was to kind of create a little bit of a community buzz and host an opening day water celebration, sort of water education festival, if you will. And so that was one of the things that I was mostly involved with this project, where here's a few images of some of the tabling that we did, where we would bring in community partners who had water education things of their own to share. Here they're doing tree core sampling, where you can analyze the tree rings and know if you had a wet or dry year for hundreds of years, depending on your core sample that you get. Here's a watershed activity. Here I am actually doing the water cycle, including my rain gauge, but also talking about evaporation and other parts of the water cycle as well. So this was one of the things that we would do, where we would bring in community partners for the opening day, and we would make it a little bit of a scavenger hunt. So we would have each of those tables that I just were showing here, they had a stamp at their table, and the library patrons would come and get this is the front and back, and you would basically visit each table and collect a stamp along the way. And if you got your entire sheet stamped, you could come at the end and get a little gift prize. And so that's how we organized this opening day water celebration event. So now that the grant is sunsetting and we're retiring the exhibit pieces to Durango, we still wanted to provide libraries a kit and tools to put on their own type of event like this. And so we not only created a document with links, I created a video that's going over some of the exact things that I'm talking about today. And we can provide the links that are all in here, including this video, and I'd like to show it to you, I think, because, oh no, it's not going to load. We might be able to get that link to load, but it was a neat, oh, it's actually later on. I'm sorry, that's the problem. I'll show you a video here in a second. So the steps to doing this, we've got links that show what other libraries have done in the past and ideas for the tabletop activities like Claire showed you from the clearinghouse. And then the next step, of course, is to invite partners. And you as librarians really know your individual partners, or I'm sorry, your community members that you might want to consider inviting, but sometimes you might not. And so you might even find a simple Google search a map of your like maps.google.com and search the word water education, and you might find some entities in town that you didn't know existed. They might have not really partnered with you before. And so consider conservation districts, extension offices, and other groups that you can call them and ask them if they do field trips or if they've got an outreach component, and they very likely oftentimes would love to have a table at your event to showcase their water education outreach materials. And so we also have, as I mentioned, the scavenger hunt. And so we've got templates for you to use, whether it's Canva or PowerPoint, so you can create your own and you can add logos from each of the different entities and a one-liner for what each table would be doing at their table and to make your own scavenger hunt. So now, of course, it's the marketing side of things, and most libraries have a whole team of people that know what they're doing with this too, but signage and even just homemade signs directing people on the street for how to get there. You know how to do your marketing, but one thing to include, to consider, is having a school do a field trip, not necessarily maybe on your opening day, but consider having a school come, well, actually, and for an event, depending on if you, I suppose if you don't have the traveling library exhibit, like what we worked with the libraries in this project, hosting a school to this might be something very relevant for your community. So that's something to consider as well. Food is always something that can bring people together. So whether it's pizza and salads, or you can get a food truck to come and just be there, they might be motivated to show up if you've got hundreds of people coming to an event. Here's the video I wanted to show of one of our opening day events where the library hosts invited a group of ceremonial dancers to perform, and hopefully that's not too loud. And so I hope you got a little taste of that and saw, and it was really neat too. They described each dance, and they were, of course, connected to water as well. So that was really a really enriching experience to do and to join in the community. So with that, I think I want to thank you. And if there are any questions, of course, but these are resources that I gave you a quick run through. But we have resources to assist you with putting on a water education event if that's something that you'd want to do at your library. And as I've already promoted, COCORA's, the Rain Gauge Network, if you would have any interest or have patrons that are weather weenies, if you will, who are love the weather and just want to track it or talk about it. CocoRoz is a great outlet for patrons who are just interested in the weather. So I think with that, Claire, if there's anything else, I can't remember if there was a. So yes, so please take over from here.
Yeah, so we just gave you like a fire hose of so many different resources, culmination of 4+ years. But thinking of that kind of water celebration day, the images, the video Noah shared were very Four Corners specific to those library communities. I invite you to do a little brainstorming right now. Think for a moment, what community assets can you bring to your library for a water celebration event? In that link bank, there are links to search, the extensions in your community if you don't already have existing relationships with them. But think about, existing partners or someone you might want to reach out to bring to have a table at an event celebrating water in your community. And since, we love to beg, borrow, and steal ideas, if you have some good ones or some new ones or someone you want to reach out to, please put that in the chat. Because yeah, we all learn from each other. So any community assets, partnerships that you can bring to your library, share in the chat. One of my favorite assets that I think it was the Navajo Nation Library thought of, there was like someone in their community that had a water drop costume, and they were like, I'm inviting them, like they're gonna be there, or maybe I can borrow that costume. But that was like, oh, never would have thought of that before. So you can really think outside the box too in terms of right, a water drop costume. Just some of those unique ideas. But who would you bring into your community for an event like this? Fire department. Yeah, that's a really, really unique idea. Right. Utilities. Absolutely. There's an activity on the We Are Water Clearinghouse collection about estimating how much water you're using when you shower. And so, yeah, that would be really interesting to hear from utilities, ways to conserve water. Yeah, just share out information on how they're distributing the water throughout your town. The forestry, Forest Service, I think, has been a great partner bringing in those tree rings. I have loved since I was a kid, and I love to this day, like looking at tree rings and making, you know, it's data, that you can make inference from, like, wow, this was a big water year, or oh my gosh, look for these 10 years that this tree barely grew. What was happening at that time?
4-H club someone wrote. That's awesome too. That's great. Yes,
Absolutely.
we can learn from the youth. Let's have the kids have a table for sure.
Mm-hmm.
At one of the libraries, we had the high school science teacher have his club set up a bunch of posters that they had created to share about their water and science related work. So that was fun. So high school kids.
No, one of my favorite groups you brought in, I think, was an Aztec, the very first one was someone from a garden center or some sort of gardening organization, and the kids got to look at succulents, like actually, and learn about the adaptations and how to care for these plants in that environment.
Yep, the Master Gardeners Club, which sometimes is involved with extension and 4-H, like what was written before. But yeah, I'm curious about this root
Yeah,
pike whin.
very cool. Restoring our broken Lake Michigan rivers. Wow. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. A local
Neat,
water initiative network from Terra.
neat.
Yeah, bringing in some of those subject matter experts that can, speak to what the watershed is in your area and what efforts are being done locally to conserve those. I am, even after 4 years, Noah, I'm still in such a Western way of talking. We purposefully avoided using resource as a way to describe water, to make it more just like from the indigenous perspective. That's not the way a lot of the tribes we were working with viewed water, and I still find myself, you know, with that lens. It's hard to. But yeah, that was like a big part of this project, was trying to understand and appreciate other ways of knowing water versus, my husband is a water resource engineer. That is his title. And then in speaking with some of our advisors, I remember one of our advisors told us, we exist as part of the hydrological cycle. We're not separate from that. We are water too. And it's just really great to just hear and listen to other perspectives. Great. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. I guess I didn't need to rush through those other activities. If you have questions about any of the resources, how you might be able to adapt them, if you want original copies of anything so that you can edit it to be locally relevant, please reach out. My contact information and Noah's contact information is included in that link bank. But we'll stick around maybe for a couple more minutes if anyone has questions. Yeah, there's our contact information there. Very happy to help you with any way you can adapt these resources to be useful for you. So thank you so much for joining. And let us know if you have any questions. All right. Well, thanks, Noah. Thank you for walking me through the tech difficulties.
We
That
made
used,
it. Thank you
yes,
all so
we made
much.
it. And
Yeah.
as always, I appreciate working with you. So,
I love it. Yeah, thank
yeah.
you too.
All
Thanks
right.
everyone for your time.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.